What's up, guys? Welcome back to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at advanced micro devices, AMD stock, ticker symbol AMD, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Tuesday, February 27th. Alright guys, so AMD stock here today down 51 cents a share, 0.29%, essentially a flat day as far as I'm concerned with AMD. Now, let's start here on the 1 minute chart. First of all, after hours, the stock is down about 31 cents a share. Listen, you guys hear me say this a lot. You're going to continue to hear me say this so much that you're probably going to get sick of it. After hours, I don't care if it's in your favor or going against your bias, your sentiment, or flat. I don't care. If volume is the way it is 99% of the time in after hours, which is extraordinarily low, I have a big 4K monitor in front of me, and I am having trouble even seeing those candles. If you're on a phone, there's not a chance you're even seeing those candles. It's so low. Stocks can get bullied so easily in the after hours, especially when there's no news catalyst or earnings catalyst that'll pump up volume, right? With low volume, these things just get pushed like nothing. Take it with a grain of salt. The real test is market open the next day, tomorrow. Okay? Let's just start off here by taking a look at the 1 minute chart. You guys know I'm a scalper at heart. Scalp trading is what I do every day, so I'm always concerned with trying to generate revenue, scalping revenue, around a core position with any stock that I'm looking at. AMD is a stock that I scalp very often, but being a blue chip, it is not all that common that AMD is going to be quote-unquote in play, meaning, elevated relative volume, fresh news catalyst, just like any other stock. 99% of the time, it's not going to be considered in play to intraday traders, especially quick scalpers. But every trader has one or two setups in their playbook that has edge. Just the setup itself. For me, that setup is a setup I developed. I call it the repeat offender setup. And it has edge in blue chips just based on the fact that the setup presents itself in a clean manner on a liquid enough stock. Okay? The problem is, and by the way, AMD is one that I watch for that style of setup on days when it's not in play, which is most of the time like any other stock, right? I watch AMD all day, every day for that setup. Today, though, the open was so volatile, we got that quick pop and then fall, that it widened out the channel that I typically trade that off of, and we just didn't get anywhere even close to that style of setup. And truthfully, guys, I'm going to hopefully maybe save you some time here. If you want to be a scalper, and you're just trading, like, for example, AMD on any old day, there's really no news catalyst, there's no elevated relative volume, it doesn't really have any more eyeballs than normal, and you're just going to try to scalp little pull-ins and dumps off these EMAs, or maybe even volume-weighted average price, it's not really in play. I have found, and every other trader I've ever discussed this with, every other successful trader, I should preface that by clarifying, there's no edge here. The EV, once you factor in commissions and bad fills and slippage, the expected value is negative. So there's no reason to waste our time just trading setups that don't have edge, right? But the reason I bring that up is because you guys know I'm watching AMD every day for repeat offenders. And if I find one, it gets alerted to the private room. If you want to take a look at that, I'm trading in there every day at the first link in the pinned comment. All right, let's move on now, away from the intraday mentality and on to our daily ritual here with AMD. I'm covering it every day. Hope to see you subscribe to the channel. Starting with the 5 minute here, what I'm looking at is the volume profile. Okay, again, we have a big move down and then a recovery and then consolidation. So, did we see elevated volume on either the big move down or recovery, contextually speaking? We already expect that there's going to be a slight taper off the open. We have to build that into what we're looking at. And my answer, we expect big volume off the open. We expect to taper down in volume as we go. And truthfully, there's nothing here to pull out. Okay, any bull or bear that's telling you, oh, look, did you see the volume on the open on AMD this morning? Listen, for me, it's a complete force. It's not nearly obvious enough. Into the close, you're going to have some bears in chat room saying, wow, did you see that volume into the close? Listen, this is contextual. This is expected. If this were 4 million shares on the closing candle, I'd say, listen, the bears won that close, but the truth is this, well within range. Now, let's move on here and start looking at levels. These are going to be the levels that I'm paying very close attention to on each time frame tomorrow. Of course, starting on the 30-minute, we have the 200 period and the 50 period. Bulls, my number one concern tomorrow. Any downside test of the 200 period, hold it. Hold that as support. Any upside test of that 50 period, break it. Listen, it was treated as resistance today. I want to get back above that 50 period. Break it, hold it as support. All right, now bears. Any upside test of the 50 period at all, going to want to see as hard of a rejection as possible on as much volume as possible. And bears, your number one priority tomorrow, get down below the 200 period and crack it downside, hold it as resistance. All right, let's move on now to the 4-hour chart. Take a look. This one's very in play right now. You can see we're right up against that 50 period moving average. That is not far at all. That is about 1% approximately to the downside. Bulls, any downside test of that 50 period here on the 4-hour chart, going to want to see that hold. Act like a trampoline, right? Bounce hard, move away. Hold that as support. That would prove short-term support, right? Bears, really simple here for you on the 4-hour as well. Number one priority tomorrow, crack that 50 period, that white line to the downside. Claim that as resistance. Okay, it's been a few days since you've had that in your favor. Now, the most important chart of all, the daily. Why is it most important? Because everyone's watching it. This has the most eyeballs. I actually taught a class on the primary Roensch Capital channel here today, talking about going deep into TA and how it's a self-fulfilling prophecy and how it needs to be looked at as such. Absolutely. I encourage you to go check that out after you're done here with this video if you'd like. But listen, on a chart that's as heavily watched as the daily chart, we're always looking for the most obvious story. Now, the 50 period's below 160. It's not incredibly relevant tomorrow, right? At least hopefully not, right? For us bulls. What's the obvious story here on AMD? For me, there's really four things I'm watching. 170, 175, 180, and all-time highs of 185. Bulls. Tomorrow. Hold 175, ideally break 180, make our way up toward 185. Okay, very simple. Bears. Tomorrow. And by the way, that doesn't all have to happen tomorrow, by the way. I'm just saying ideal scenario, is crack an all-time high ASAP. But in order to do that, we'd have to hold 175 and crack 180, of course. Bears, primary objective tomorrow, get down below 175, head down toward 170, because ideally the near-term hope is that we get down below 170 if you're a bear. And bears, of course, any upside test of 180, going to want to hold that as resistance as hard as possible. Now, let's take a look here. We'll just finish up by taking a look at the bias in the chain, right? What did the options traders think of AMD today? We had 414,000 total contracts traded, and this is all positioning today heading into tomorrow. So really, it's like, what do they think of AMD as we head into tomorrow? 248,000 of those were calls. 166,000 of those were puts. So we do have a relatively heavy call side bias here on AMD today. And look at this, the short-term speculators. The 0 to 20 delta range, 89,000 calls, about 65,000 puts. So not only are we seeing an overall call bias, we're also seeing a short-term speculator call side bias. And interestingly, every single delta range, look at this, out of the money, at the money, and in the money. That's on average, that's going to be more short-term sentiment, more mid-term, and more long-term sentiment. All of the ranges, to varying degrees, yes, but all of them are leaning to the call side. Which I wouldn't say it's so uncommon, especially on AMD, but that's an interesting thing to see and worth mentioning. Okay, first of all, make sure your risk is managed as always around here. Here on this channel, on the main channel, number one priority is stay in the game. No one trade is worth knocking you out. It's not even close to worth it, I promise you. Manage your risk. The options traders can, of course, be wrong. Listen, if you got value out of this video, again, I am covering AMD stock every single day. Please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it. And again, if you want to come trade with me every single day, come join the private group at that first link in the pinned comment, and I'll see you tomorrow.